Welcome to the Higher Self Podcast. The purpose of this podcast is to help you unravel anything keeping you from a life of true abundance, joy, and happiness, which is your birthright. Each week, we'll bring in different guests specifically tailored to help you on your journey to discovering your higher self. Whether it's spirituality, business, finances, health, or relationships, there are no topics that are off limits. So get ready and enjoy this week's episode of The Higher Self. Welcome to this week's episode of The Higher Self. I got to tell you, I'm excited. This is my first guest of the brand new year. I feel a new energy. I feel a new fire for the show. And you have the sweetest, most beautiful smile. I got to tell you, you have wonderful energy.
Thank you.
And Davana May, welcome.
Thank you.
We met or we got introduced because one of our previous guests, Aubert, is your husband.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yes.
So I want to talk all about that because as I was explaining to you, I remember when Aubert was here, he was sitting in your chair and I was literally, I'm not going to lie, having ego deaths from his power and his energy. And you know, and more than anything, it's like, I'm going to say this, there's a lot of people that do the work. You know, there's a lot of people that sit with plant medicine. There's a lot of people that are on the spiritual path, but the deeper you go, the more your heart recognizes the real ones. You know what I mean by that? You know what I mean? Because I feel like in spirituality, there's like the clique, like the cool crowd, right? And it's like surface, you know,
Yep.
and maybe we'll get into that. And then when you get into the depths of the universe, love, consciousness, and the heart, that's very rare. And so I remember sitting here, being with him, thinking like, God, this guy is like, I'm just going to be honest, this guy is as close to God as I've ever felt. You know, I literally felt that, you know. And as a result of that, I remember thinking like, man, I'm scared because I'm having some ego deaths right now because he was bringing up issues around my dad and so forth and so on. And then it's so beautiful to see your energy, right? And I feel God in you, right? And I want to start off by asking, you know, you mentioned about your husband, I want to go there real fast, that sometimes people have the opposite reaction, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting that you use the term ego death because what I have felt from different men or even women is any block that they have to Aubert, it's the ego and it's fear. It's the heart doesn't want to open and feel that connection to the God within him. So I love that you use that.
Which is the God within us.
Right. Which
Right?
we're afraid of, right?
That's
Ultimately,
right.
it's like
That's right.
love or fear, right?
Yeah,
So
that's right.
I think it's so beautiful that you see him, you know, because there are some people that can see him and see his heart and feel his heart because you're just feeling your own heart.
That's exactly what it was. And I also admitted to you, you know, I have one of my karmas in life is relationships. It's not the easiest thing in the world for me, right? And especially relationships with men, because I had my father wounding, right? And so as a result, it's something that's like, it's kind of rough for me. But with him, I felt just this, like my guard just released. And I was like, you know what? You're going to be my homie.
Yeah.
I don't have too many of them, but you're going to be one of them. It was really cool.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah.
So, you know, the second thing that came up before the cameras were even turned on that I want to bring up was, you know, obviously you're pregnant, right? How far along? are you?
28 weeks.
28 weeks. Beautiful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
How does it feel?
It feels good.
Yeah?
Yeah. It feels like this is the third baby. So we just go deeper and deeper into the spiral of motherhood and the surrender and the trust and just trusting my body more and more each time.
You know, I feel called to ask you. I remember, you know, obviously I've been on my journey for about 3.5 years now, right? And so all of my children were born prior to myself and their mother is as well on the journey to either of us, you know, being conscious, right? What does it feel like to be conscious of the fact that you are bringing in a life that a soul chose you as their mother, right? And came, through Aubert into you, and you are conceiving it, right? Because I've felt the power of that before, and you are holding this life, and you're going to give birth to life. Like, my God, my heart wants to explode just thinking of it.
Yeah.
What does that feel like as a woman?
I feel like I need to remember to pause and to tap into that, because you can still just go about your daily life, like taking care of the other kids, going to the market, and you're like, oh, wait a minute. So I need to make sure I set time to like sit and drop in and connect and be like, wow, what's happening here? This is deep. And it doesn't last long. So let's embrace it while we're here. And
you know what came to me? It's like life is that way.
Yeah.
Isn't
life.
it?
Yeah.
Isn't it? It's like being in the womb is a representation of life.
Of life. And you're so close to death as well.
Yeah.
You're on that fine line.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so beautiful. And we get to, I mean, I really want to ask you, and this is for, we have quite a bit of women followers and listeners and supporters of the show. But, I know, not as a mother, but I know as a father what it's like to create a child unconsciously, like, without being vulgar, but just doing an act and then going about my business, working hard all day, and then just waiting 9 months. Of course, having cute moments and so forth and so on, but not being conscious of the fact that we are bringing life into this world, right? And you asked me how many children do I have? I have 3, and I know I've been told there's at least 2 more coming for sure. So I can't wait to experience that, right? As a man, as a conscious man, I think I'm going to be crying all 9 months, to be honest with you. I think. But what does it feel like? What does it feel like for a woman?
Oh, yeah. I feel like for me personally, it just brings up so much. Each pregnancy is so different. And I feel like each birth just brings a woman deeper into herself, deeper into her relationship with spirit, with God, with the goddess within. And I feel like each birth brings us even deeper into consciousness. We go through rites of passage. We go through an initiation. Every birth is a powerful initiation. And my first birth went the way it did so that it can literally wake me up. What I went through, I was literally, even though I was doing the work, I was on the journey for about 4 years. I still had more work to do that came out in the birth. And what happened in the birth, which we can get into, but
let's get into it.
Okay.
Yeah, what happened?
Yeah, so for my first pregnancy, Aubert and I we were together in Bali, and he got the download. We did a ceremony, and I was leaving the next day to go back to California to teach at Spirit Weavers, do Cosmic Earth women's retreat, and graduate from the Gaia School of Healing. So I had this like powerful journey I was going on back in the States. He was going to stay in Bali, and had the download that he had to let me go. So we had an uncoupling in Bali, crying for days, just letting each other go. Like that night, I was leaving the next day. So just like crying, not knowing if we would ever see each other again, because I was going to go on my path, and who knows, right? Where the winds would take us.
Right.
But he wrote me this note, and he said, you're being initiated into womanhood. And he spelled it WOMBMAN, womanhood. And I'm going to hold space as the sacred masculine for you to choose what you want, because my past relationships were very controlling men.
Yours were.
Yeah, that was part of my journey, was domestic violence, healing from that. So he wanted to really step back and let me be the one to choose. So I go back.
Powerful and beautiful.
Yeah.
And what a representation of true divine masculinity.
Yes.
God bless you, Aubert.
Yeah.
I love you, bro.
Like letting each other go, right? And so that let go of any codependency, any dynamics that might have been unhealthy or attachment. So we let each other go. And then I find out when I'm back in California that I was pregnant. So then I went deep into another dark night of the soul, I would call it, because we started to see like, we might not be together. And then he started going on his journey, and he's like, I don't know if I'm ready to be a father. I don't know what this is going to look like. I don't know if we're going to be together. So I had to go deep into what's going to happen? What do I choose? Do I keep this baby or not? Are we going to co-parent together or not? Because that was my biggest fear, was to be like a single mother, which my mom was with my sister. So I was living with my mom at the time, and she projected all of her fears onto me, asking me every day, when are you going to get an abortion? The clock is ticking, So I was in my deep meditation for like those first 3 months, crying every day. And then we decided to come back together, and it was very slow. But I went back to Bali, and anyways, we decided to, say yes to life.
Yeah.
And our two friends have a song called Say Yes to Life. And we played that, and we're like, let's just do it and trust. And so I was traveling a lot during my pregnancy first. I was in LA, then Orange County doctors, and then in Bali seeing doctors there. And then we were in Thailand, and then we thought we were going to live in Bali, but a volcano erupted. So we were back in California. So it was just a lot of movement during that pregnancy. And by the end, when we were finally back in Cali, I was like, I'm just so exhausted. I don't even care where I birth. It was very just like, I'll birth in a hospital. Even though I knew I didn't want to be in a hospital, I was like, you know what? It'll be okay. I'll be able to show women that you can still have a natural, an unmedicated vaginal birth in a hospital without an epidural. You could still do it. And I took this Love Your Labor class that helped, just gave us tips for how to birth in a hospital naturally without medicine. And I ended up getting put to sleep under general anesthesia for an emergency C-section that was not an emergency now that I know and have more awareness. But that brought me to consciousness. So I literally got put to sleep to wake up. And I truly believe that everything happens the way it's meant to. Like, I trust in the divine perfection of everything.
Yeah.
And it's also a balance of what could I have done differently, but I know now. So education, I think, is very important, because if I had known that I had other options, that I could have left when I didn't like my doctor, I could have found someone else even at 38 weeks, or I could have birthed at home. I didn't know yet about free birth. I found them shortly after.
Wow.
And Free Birth Society is basically teaching women how you can birth at home, unassisted, with just yourself.
Wow.
Or with a radical birth keeper who goes to the school with Free Birth Society to basically hold space for women in birth. And she doesn't have a license, so she's not tied to the system.
Yes.
Where a lot of midwives are tied still with their license and operate from fear.
And that energy.
It's the same.
My God.
We call them midwives. Yeah. So that was my transformation of just knowing that there's a different way. So the second time around, when I got pregnant again, the moment that my blood didn't come, I just dropped in and I was like, I'm going all out. We are doing this. The term we call it is a wild pregnancy, which means you have a completely undisturbed pregnancy. Like, there's no tests, there's no doctor visits, there's no appointment,
nothing at all.
No
like
midwife.
In the old school days.
Like in the old school days.
That is sick.
I didn't even take a pregnancy test because I was just like, okay, I'll know I'm pregnant at some point. I'm gonna know. So I don't want anything outside of me. I don't want to have the stick tell me I'm pregnant. I'm gonna drop in and feel my body, because it starts there.
Wow.
And so again, we were traveling. So I also didn't even want to deal what I did last time with all these different doctors. And so I was like, nope, maybe when we get to where we know we'll land, I was like, oh, maybe I'll have a midwife. I was kind of still open, but I was like, at least right now, nothing. I'm going to keep doing the way I'm doing it. And we come to Austin. And as soon as we get to Austin, I send an email to Emily with Free Birth Society. And I ask her if there are any radical birth keepers here in Austin. And there's one. Her name was Isabella. And I had an interview with her, and I knew right away that she was going to be at my birth. She's a radical feminist, and that's what I needed at that time. I needed just a woman there who, she used to be a doula in hospitals and saw all the abuse happening to women in the hospitals. So then she went to just be a doula for midwives and saw that it was essentially the same.
And then so she got out of the system.
She got out of the system and then trained to be a radical birth keeper, which is just like a woman who just is like sitting. She was just sitting on my bed during the labor, just to hold space,
just like in ceremony.
Exactly. She wasn't doing tests. She wasn't doing cervical checks. She wasn't checking the heartbeat of the baby. Just let me be. And
isn't that profound? You're like blowing my mind. I've never heard of this.
Yeah,
but I'm so happy I did.
Yeah, because it's like When I was in labor, I tapped into the collective of women and I got teary. I remember feeling the sadness and the grief of the loss of the women who don't even know that this exists, that this is possible.
They're going to know now. Millions of women are going to know now. As a matter of fact, all of you women, do me a favor. Just stop right now. Go share this episode right now with every female human being. No, and every man. Because I believe if the men, if the men know, like we will protect our women.
Exactly.
Because you got to understand, guys, you're protecting your children.
Yeah.
You're protecting your children because they're not being born from any of this energy and any of this collusion that's happening.
It makes me cry. Yeah. Because it's so important for the men too, because I know a lot of women whose partners don't support them, and they end up birthing in a hospital because the man is afraid, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Which comes again for the women to know that no one outside of you can choose. Like a woman has to be in her power, no matter what anyone outside of her is saying. She has to drop in and say, I'm doing this, and not listen to all the voices outside of her.
Right.
Because that's what I did for my first birth, for my first pregnancy and birth. You know, all the red flags were there in my body. I didn't want to be in the hospital, but I didn't know I had a different choice. And the trauma was still in me from like childhood, listening to authority figures like my abusive father, and I wanted to leave, but I didn't, you know? So it's like I was still in that freeze state. And so I ended up having to get put to sleep to have the baby because my body didn't feel safe to open.
Yeah. But it's explained to you differently.
Yeah.
It's explained to you like something's wrong. And, and we have to do this, which makes them more money.
Oh, yeah. She would say she's like, oh, you're Black, so your statistics are higher for having preeclampsia. So, you know, she was putting these things in me.
The fuck
so then she would make me go do these tests and then she'd be like, oh, actually it's fine. So just putting that stress in. Yeah.
Can I take a moment? I seriously want you all to just, like, if you're driving, whatever you're doing, just drop into your heart right now. And if you don't know what that means, it's just quiet your mind and close your eyes for a second and just feel what you're feeling right now by receiving this message, which many of you have never heard in your life. And yet this is how life used to be. This is how life used to be before the system came up with this wonderful idea that they could monetize life. And what this beautiful sister is showing you is that you get to choose different. You get to be awakened to the fact that there is a different way. And I believe that choice energetically impacts not only you as a woman and you men as the father, but your child as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, what do we have to do so that our first child doesn't have to be the sacrificial lamb? Yeah. Because that's what's happening. It's like after the first one, then women go and make it, you know, a different choice, maybe even the third one.
Fuck, man, I'm having another ego death right now. I'm going to say it. And by the way, I know this is a sensitive subject, what I'm going to bring up, because, you know, I'll say it. It's like, you know, certain religions believe heavily in what I'm about to say. And yet, you know, the revelations that I've been getting about circumcision, for example, are just deeply profound.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. I know that source was preparing me for this conversation. By the way, I didn't know you were coming
today.
No. I don't know. My team just sets it up, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I know you. You're Albert's wife, right? So it's like, cool, let's drop in, which I think makes it cool because it makes it more flow. But honest to God, just yesterday, I had, man, source is powerful. Just yesterday, because it had been bugging me, I had asked Claudia, the boy's mom, I had asked her, Isaiah and Micah are circumcised, but Aaron is not, right? And she says, no, all three of them are. And I said, I should have followed my heart. because I knew, I knew, my heart knew. And I remember seeing them. I remember seeing them as little boys, and they're just like strapped open like that. And it's like, here's your job as a man to protect your children. And they're like taking a part of them. And I now see what it is spiritually. It's like you're literally instilling fear and pain in their life right at the get-go.
Right away.
Right
War.
away.
They're instilling the war.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Right at the get-go. I'm not circumcised.
Wow.
I'm not circumcised. And I genuinely, hand to heart believe, I genuinely believe that that's why I am who I am today.
Mm-hmm.
I genuinely believe, I see it now.
Same with Aubert.
He's not circumcised.
He's not. And his dad was, and his dad knew that it affected him and chose not to do it to Aubert.
And you know what the crazy thing is I wanted to beat the living shit out of the doctor.
Of course.
For doing that to my kid. But it's but my mind was so programmed to think but this is what you have to do. And I can't blame anybody. It's all perfect. It's okay. But it's so interesting how Source was preparing me for this conversation, because I know I got to let it go.
Mm-hmm.
I know I got to let it go because I can't carry that guilt. And I was operating from where I was operating from,
Right.
But now I want to have 5 more babies.
I know.
And have at least 3 boys. So you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And obviously my boys are beautiful and I love them, but it's but I know because as I look out into the world, I know the messages I get, the downloads I get, the abundance that lives within me, the love that's within me. And it's kind of rare.
Yeah.
It's kind of rare. And I also got this message that it can be healed.
Yeah.
You know, it can be healed. Everything can be healed. And yet, what are your thoughts?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just had this moment. I had to have it.
Of course. It's so, I think more and more people need to talk about this.
Yeah.
There's a lot of denial, huge denial that comes through for the mothers and the fathers when they realize afterwards, and they still kind of they don't want to believe it. I see a lot of, I see a lot of denial with it. I'm still trying to defend why, but I could feel the energy behind it. It's not.
But that's what the ego just does, though.
Yeah.
And I say this with absolute love, but it's I see this on social media. We're growing so much right now, and we're growing because we're being controversial. And controversial is treat your woman like a queen. Open her door, pay for her at dinner. This is controversial now. The same way breastfeeding became controversial, right? It's the system is trying to eliminate life.
Oh, yeah.
That's what darkness does. And so when you're living in fear, which by the way, I was there. So I'm not pointing fingers or anything. I was there. I know what this is like. Your mind just confronts and debates and argues because it can't possibly be true that I've been believing this thing my entire life, for example,
Yeah.
And
I recently shared, because Aubert did a post recently about circumcision, and I reshared it, and a woman messaged me who lives in Turkey. They force them there. You can't even say no. So there are some countries where it's forced. And there's a lot of resources now that are bringing awareness to this topic and sharing it in a beautiful way. And, just giving education, and education creates awareness shifts consciousness, creates change. So
for sure,
we're on this earth school to learn. Every soul here, your sons, it's part of them chose that experience to help them grow.
That's right. Absolutely.
Just see it from the highest in all ways.
Absolutely. So I want to shift gears a little bit. I want to shift gears. So many of us as human beings, when we are entering in relationship, with a man or a woman or whatever, nowadays, because of the system, everybody is looking for love outside of them. And when they're looking for love outside of them, they're looking for that partner, right? And they're looking for that partner from the space of need and want. It's as if they are not fulfilled enough within inside of themselves, and they're not happy enough. I'm sorry, there's a lot of energy moving. They're not happy enough with inside of themselves to be okay with being with themselves. And we're constantly on dating apps. We're constantly searching. We're constantly looking. And it was so beautiful what you just told me about what you and Aubert decided was to let each other go, actually, right? Which is the opposite. Like, that is true, like tapping in and allowing the journey of life to truly just like permeate within your heart and soul. What was that like for you? Because it was medicine for you, coming from your past and your situations that you lived in before. What was that like for you to feel a man, not because he didn't want you, but because he was being obedient?
Right.
How beautiful. And what was that like for you, that process?
Yeah, for me, it was all of it. I had all the emotions come up. I had the inner standing that like, oh yeah, like he needs to go on his path. Like he needs to go serve God. Like I just see Aubert's like highest calling, So
Yeah.
I'd be like, yeah, like it makes sense. He can't just be a father doing these nitty gritty things, So I like understood that. Then I would also feel the anger. I would feel so much anger. I'd be like, just so mad. Like, how could you be doing this? Like, just that he was so unattached. Yeah. Detached, and that would make me mad. And also I was living at my mom's at the time. So when I was going through that journey of learning how to respond instead of react, because she would come at me with all the things and I would lose it and scream and slam the door. And I would just get so exhausted and be like, you know what? And then I was like, Mother, thank you. Whenever I was calm, she would be like, oh, wow, okay, I feel better now. So I was able to see what happens in other people when your nervous system is calm, that it shifts the other dynamic of the other person.
Yeah.
That when you react on craziness, the other people feed off of that, or they see that as out of control. So I was able to learn from that experience as well with my mother. But yeah, with Aubert, it was, it just brought me deeper into my own self and knowing that I'll be okay no matter what. So that's what I had to tap into was, it's not going to come from anyone outside of me. He could be like, yes, I want you. And then, he could leave me in 2 years, or something could happen to, you never know in life what can happen. So you have to be okay being alone, even if you have children. And so I just got the message on that solar eclipse in 2017 when everyone went up to Oregon. There's this big cosmic solar eclipse, and I went into silent meditation. I stayed inside in a dark room the whole day, and I did a beautiful ritual where I married myself when the sun and the moon were crossing over. And I basically woke up the next day saying, I'm going to keep this baby no matter what. Even if Aubert and I aren't together, I'm going to figure this out because God got me.
Wow.
Yeah. And then after that is when then we got together. And it was the same thing with us before we even got together. I had left my past relationship and I was so happy being alone because it was a breath of fresh air to experience what freedom was like again. And I just wanted to be alone. And I remember I went camping in Yosemite by myself overnight. And I was on a hike and people would stop me and they'd be like, are you here alone? It was like, for some reason.
You're a weirdo.
Yeah. And it's like, how did they know? If I could have had my family down, why was I getting stopped? Like, are you here by yourself? And I was like, yeah. But I got to this place where I was like, I don't need anyone. I was just like, God, I was just praising God. I was just like, I love you. I was just laughing at like, just this connection that I was feeling with God was all that matters. And like, I'm good. Like, I don't need a man. I don't need anyone. And then shortly after that, Aubert and I, became a union.
You know what? I say this on my posts. And I want to ask you this question. One of my most powerful, popular videos, I said, I'm going to go to that one in a second, but just recently I posted an image of Jen and I, right? And I was just expressing my love for her and my gratefulness for her and the medicine that she is in my life. Like literally the moments that we have had of like unraveling my heart just because of her energy and who she is, it's like, it's perfect for me. And so I made this post just like celebrating love. And so many women got offended by it. Not men, women. And so many women got offended by, I'm going to call it what it is, what they saw, which was, I'm older, she's younger, she's tall, she's beautiful, she's whatever. It was like a mirror back to them, basically. And the number one comment we got was, well, it's easy when you don't have kids, and it's easy. And here I am, I'm stuck. I have 3 children. My husband just left me, or whatever the case may be, which like, I feel that. But I also want to let women know that regardless of what is happening, they can find safety within themselves, and they can find their true power within themselves. And in the video I was mentioning, I mentioned like, I honestly believe a woman's true power is in her intuition, her womb, her ability to create. And the system has people living in so much fear and negativity that they are not even able to see who they really are, who they really are.
Right.
And yet here you are, you were ready in your power, you and God. And you were able to say, it doesn't matter what happens, because God, you got me.
Yes.
What message can you share with women that might be going through a hard time and yet are living life from this perspective of fear that they're alone?
Yeah. I would just say, it's self-love is such a word that's thrown around, and it can have so many different meanings, but it's like truly loving you're alone, like love you're alone. And that could show up in so many different ways, but just getting to that place where, first of all, if you connect to the oneness of everything, we're all one, right? So it's like what you're missing or needing in that other person is really in you already. And to just like tap into that and to just pray, have your rituals, your practices that just bring you to your altar, that bring you to the altar within, to sit, to breathe, and to love your breath, to love your voice, to move, to just tap into the nature. I think that's key. So many women have, like you said, our power is in our intuition in our womb, and think about the war on our wombs and how women have been so disconnected from our intuition. That's the biggest thing. The wild woman is the intuition, and we've been completely disconnected from her. And, we're awakening, and so many of us are coming back to the natural medicines and the ways of the plants and the trees and the flowers, but it's still kind of new for a lot of us. A lot of women haven't tapped into that yet. But I think when a woman is in love with the earth even more than like a man, that's the key.
That's a clip. That's a clip. Because women have to hear this.
Yeah.
Women have to hear this. Women have to know that everything they've ever searched for is inside of themselves. Before I met Jen, I had gotten during a ceremony very clear two messages. Number one was we were going to have a daughter, or I was going to have a daughter. And then number two, that I was going to meet like my soulmate, right? And they didn't show me anything other than the color of her hair. Right. And so I was just like, where is she? Where is she? Where is she? Where is she? And honest to God, I'd been like that since I was 12 years old. I've been like that. Like my heart knew I was going to meet someone special. Like I always knew. And, finally one day I remember ayahuasca, I hadn't even drank her. She was in my refrigerator, which is a funny story in and of itself. But she was in my refrigerator because we were going to have a journey that weekend. And that's how powerful the medicine is. The medicine, for those of you guys that don't know, the medicine is so powerful. She can just be in your house. And I went on a full journey. I'm laying on my bed, like shaking. I'm a shaker. And I finally go like, well, God, where is the one? I want to meet the one. Like, I know I'm meant to meet the one, right? And my hands shoot up. I'll never forget this for as long as I live. My hands shoot up and my hand just starts shaking like this, right? And it starts pointing to God. And then I clearly remember going like, God, show me, where is the one? Like, I want to see her. I want to meet her, right? And then next thing you know, my hand, this is not me. My hand just goes like this. And I'm like, oh, fuck.
Yes.
It's me. Everything I've been looking for my entire life, it's me. It's me. It's us.
Mm.
And this is why I'm so passionate about this work that we do, because human beings don't know. They're so busy looking outside of them for a man or a woman, a car, sunglasses, red bottom shoes, a purse, injections, whatever, to alter themselves, to find love outside of themselves. And all along, it's inside.
Yeah.
And then you know what the craziest thing that happened right afterwards? The craziest thing that happened is right after I learned that lesson, and that lesson made me cry, because that's very profound. Even hearing it is one thing, but like really experiencing it is a whole, it changes your life. Sure enough, I turn over to my left, and there she is. I could just see the top of like light brown head leaning into my chest like this. And all I heard was, she'll finally feel safe with you. And you know what was crazy? If I'm completely honest, I wasn't in my masculine back then. And this is for you men, pay attention. I wasn't in my masculine back then. So the thought that came to me was, wow, a woman's going to feel safe with me? Like, I don't know if that can happen. True story. True story. And that's been my journey.
Wow.
It's been my journey.
Yeah, that's huge, because that, I bet a lot of men, that's so deep, you know? Yeah. So many ways. So many ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
For the men. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. If you're enjoying this episode, I wanted to remind you that this episode is being brought to you by the energy of healing and transformation. And it is your time to act now to transform your life by awakening your highest self. Join us March 23rd, 24th, and 25th in Austin, Texas, live at Awaken Your Highest Self. Tickets are on sale now. Go to dannymorel.com/awaken and reserve your seats today. And I want to ask you this question. I talk a lot about masculine, feminine energy and the power in a woman, you know, being in her womb, her intuition, her energy, her strength. And I've got to tell you something, like, while we were just talking, just your presence, like literally just your presence. My solar plexus were being healed. My heart was like everything, because I'm very conscious of what's happening, right? And we do a lot of these shows, but I'm telling you, I know the truth when I know the truth, because I feel it. I feel it, right? What does it mean to you to be in your divine feminine and the power that that holds, not only to a man, but to the world and to the collective consciousness?
Well, I feel like it can look different for every woman, and that's her tapping into that unique essence, that divine spark within her. For me personally, it has been connecting with Pachamama and letting her move through me, with Gaia, with the goddess, with the divine feminine on this planet, which has been, of course, suppressed. And this is what we as women are remembering and waking up to through all these beautiful practices that we're learning and remembering. For me personally, it has been connecting with the plants and the trees and the flowers. And it doesn't have to be a crazy psychedelic, you know, ego death journey. It could be the plants growing in your backyard that a lot of people don't even know are medicine, and the nettles are popping up everywhere in the springtime because that plant is telling you that plant will nourish you in mind, body, spirit, right? And people are putting pesticides and weed killer when it's like, no, that is the breast milk of the earth. Yeah. So just that, like, simple, like, what are the plants that keep showing up around you? You keep seeing rose. What you keep seeing rose, like the medicine of rose has been so big for me in my journey working with rose. And rose is the flower of the divine feminine, connects us to our hearts, has the power to address all imbalances, mind, body, spirit. So I think when women become more in tune with the plants growing around them, with the ways they could work with the plants to heal themselves and their families, when mothers are able to make herbal medicines to help their children and, you know, their families, instead of going outside of ourselves. And of course, Western medicine is great, and it's great for times of desperation and for emergency. So grateful, of course.
But that's, yeah.
But we need to come back into balance and harmony within and without. And, you know, when we leave our bodies, where do our bodies go? They go back to the earth.
Right.
We are of the earth, but we've been so disconnected because of, I think, religion, a lot of religion that
a lot of religion.
doesn't want us to know that power and that truth. So it's beautiful to see this shift happening on the planet. My name, Davana, is a flower that's used in aromatherapy to help mind, body, spirit. And that was my awakening, was connecting to the flower of Davana that actually helped wake me up from the abusive relationship I was in. And on the back of the bottle of the essential oil, it says, awaken fast.
Oh,
yeah. So
I love it.
I was like, I'm here for the plants and the trees. And of course, the creator that made them all, the original medicine of the planet.
Yeah.
So I think that is a huge element, and just connecting with all the elements, the water, huge. We are made of water, right?
Yeah.
And so many of us are disconnected from the spiritual element of water and the mystery of water and what water represents and the consciousness of water, and that it holds memory and that it holds messages. And, you know, our ancestors drank the same drops of water that are here on the planet now. So just connecting to water and the abundance of water and the magic and mystery. And of course, the fire, just the air, just the elements are so big. I think in so many ways we can work with them. And movement. I think movement is huge. So many women are so stiff in their bodies and their hips, right? And so much trauma is stored in our hips, and there's a lot of shame here. So I think movement is a huge piece. And I just know from working with women that it's a huge block for them, that they, you know, being free in their bodies because they were shamed as children or whatever it was. And then same with the voice, you know, told to shut up, told your voice is ugly. So they locked up their voice. So being able to free the voice and sing and speak
regardless
your
of how it sounds.
Exactly.
Like, it's not about that.
It's not about that. Your voice has the power to heal your body with the vibration of your unique voice. And
that shows up even like during orgasm.
Right.
Because a lot of women, it's like they're restricted.
Yes.
And so they're not open.
Yep. And it shows up in birth. We're so tight here, and our jaws enclosed, and the yoni and the jaw are all connected, right? And the tissues of the yoni and the mouth. Ah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You men, hold space for your women. I think it's very important. And I think as you're hearing this, and this is my challenge to you men, as you're hearing all of this, absorb it. Feel it, but then start to live it, you know, because so many women right now are reaching out asking. There's so many messages, I can't even keep up with it anymore. And I will always keep reminding people, and thank you, Davana, because you're proving what I'm saying it's true. If you're ready to heal, just do the basics. The mind wants it to be so complicated. Go connect with nature.
Yeah.
Go take off those heels, which are meant to keep you away from Mother Earth. That's the spiritual symbolism of a heel, by the way.
Wow.
Right? Go take off those heels and reconnect and reground yourself. Go walk with your shoes off. Go hug a tree.
Yeah.
And it's purposely been made fun of so you could think you're weird by doing the very thing you need to do to heal your heart, your soul, your mind, and your body. Go jump in water, right? And then, yes, go do some yoga, you know, because it'll move your body, because men store trauma in so many different areas, but women, you're storing it right here. And you're so stiff because you don't even give yourself or allow yourself the space to go move, right? And I just want to say thank you for bringing that up, because you know, eventually you can do plant medicine, and eventually you can come to awaken, you know, but if you really hone into just feel the energy of this conversation right now, there is truth here. There is absolute universal truth. And that truth is that you can heal yourself, and you are the one. And all you got to start doing is just go reconnect with the elements. Just go reconnect. And I promise you, magic will move. I promise.
And I think another key piece of the divine feminine is the sacred rage, to be able to express, and for a woman to be witnessed in her full expression. It's not just all pretty and flowers and sitting down and under a tree, right? In birth, it's bloody, it's messy. And for a woman to be able to express that part of her is so powerful and so needed and has been so repressed on this planet in both men and women, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
yes, that's actually, yeah.
Well, it's awesome. It's interesting because that's why, like in the Shipibo culture, like when it comes to ayahuasca ceremonies, it's done at night because it's also the woman and the feminine is dark.
The dark, yeah.
It's the dark. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So, and there's a lot here, but the dark has been demonized, right? We've been taught to fear the dark, and that has shown up in many ways. Black skinned people, the womb, the soil, the earth. We're taught to be afraid of the unknown, of what we don't know, that mystery, the black void. And that's where the power actually lies. That's where the seed is planted. That's where the roots grow. That's where the light shines into the shadow. That actually is where our power lies. So yeah, I'll share a little story I recently heard a version of it that's actually explains a story between Shakti and Shiva.
Mm-hmm.
And
before you do, they don't know what that is.
Okay,
sure. Yeah, what is Shakti? What is
okay? So Shakti, Shiva is essentially the Indian, the Vedic, the Hindu. Right? Is it the Hindu?
Mm-hmm.
For the god and goddess, essentially the masculine and feminine form of God. Shakti and Shiva, Shiva and Shakti. And anyways, in 2016, Aubert and I were at a beautiful festival, Lucidity. There was a event happening called The Voice of the Primal Feminine at 2 p.m. I saw it on the calendar. I was like, I'm going to that. I don't know what it is. I don't care who's coming with me. I'm going. And Aubert came with me and some of our other friends. And it ended up being a powerful container that was held where the women were on one side, the men were on the other side. You could choose to be on the men's side. A man could choose to be on the women's side if he wanted to connect to the inner feminine, or a woman wanted to connect to her inner masculine. And we did an hour of prepping for what was to come next through movement, through sound, get embodiment practices. And after that, each woman got to choose a man or someone representing the masculine to come up, and she got to go in front of him and just express in whatever way it looked like, whatever wanted to come through her. And he wasn't allowed to say a word. He just had to sit there or stand there and just hold space. And so different women went up, and one woman went up, and she was the first one to kind of bring through the rage piece. She just started going, sacred rage. She's like, I'm feeling sacred rage. And then another woman goes, and this one woman picks one man, and she's really nice to him and sweet, kind of honoring that piece, which is beautiful. But what it brought up for me was the rage that I needed to express. And it was a white man that had tribal paint on him. So my ex was white, so I got to do it for the collective and for the personal.
Right.
But I went up and just unleashed the deepest power, feminine rage for the ancestors, for the collective, about the earth, just all of it, the abuse to women, to the earth, to the planet, the patriarchy, colonialism, colonization, just went off. Women were crying. All the women were just crying. And after that, Aubert, he was just blown away. He was just in awe of me because he saw me at that place, and he was able to hold space for it and just love me through it.
Yeah.
And because of that, I was finally able to see him. Because in the beginning, there was still resistance. I was healing from my past relationship. There's a little PTSD happening there, anxiousness, hypervigilance. But after that, I was able to see Aubert. The blockages that I was still holding against him melted away because he was able to hold me in my sacred rage.
Wow.
Which most men aren't able to do.
No. Powerful. I hope you guys are listening. I hope you guys are listening, and you're listening from an open mind and an open heart to truly and fully understand who you are as a man.
Mm.
And, I want to go back because I've seen and have heard of so many women who are afraid to sing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be honest, and I accept full responsibility for this, but I never meant anything wrong with it. But with my ex, when she would go to sing, I would make fun of her. Mm-hmm. Right. And I didn't realize what I was doing back then, but but I did the opposite. And so, you know, I obviously apologize for that. And it was in my unknowing, basically, you know. And I want you guys to understand that for so many women, their voices and their throat chakras have been blocked, and they don't know how to express themselves. And it comes up during the act of making love. Because the act of making love is a representation of life. It's a representation energetically of how you live your life. So you men, and I say this, brothers, stop being so selfish in that act. Stop entering into that act from the perspective of getting what you need, and in turn, maybe flip it, right? Flip it in this perspective that you are going to hold space for your woman, right? And as you're holding space for your woman, I want you to watch, and I want you to start paying attention, and I want you to start seeing where stress shows up in her body. I want you to start seeing where closure shows up in her body, right? I want you to start seeing how maybe your energy is not allowing her to fully express herself in her true femininity, and touch her face and caress her and make her to feel safe. And when it comes time to orgasm, if you see her clenching up, literally help her to open and remind her that it's okay, and encourage her and hold space and tell her, let yourself feel, let yourself express, let yourself vocalize what it is that you're actually feeling. And that's what it means to hold space, and what it means to allow your energy to heal her energy. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a man has to be able to have gone to the depths himself to be able to hold that.
And to be able to even recognize it.
Recognize it without his own trauma coming up from his mother, who might have not been able to express her rage in a healthy way, or his father, right? So there's so many layers to it, which is why we're doing this work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so interesting you say that, because thank you for reminding me that, because who I am today is not who I was in the past, when I was, quite honestly, a jerk.
Right.
You know, when I was self-serving, when I was egotistical, when I only cared about myself, you know. And it took me going into the depths of myself to discover what it means to hold space for a woman, you know. And I'm also going to say this for you ladies, you know, you're free to do what you like, but stop thinking that there's no more men out there in their divine masculine energy, because the more that you think that, the more that you're going to attract that.
Yeah.
And the opposite, right? You are powerful. So your mind and your heart and your energy is helping to create our reality. So instead of saying there's no more good men, there's no more masculine men, say the opposite.
Yes.
Say, I love how many powerful masculine men there are out there. Oh my God, they're everywhere. Oh my God, there's an abundance of them.
Yes.
They're all king. They're all beautiful. They're all so powerful. And guess what will happen? You are so powerful that you will literally transform men's life, men that you will never even meet, just by that energy, just by calling that in.
Yes.
And this is where we are one. And this is where we get to help heal each other. This is what is called the collective energy. And we all play a role in it.
Yep.
Yeah.
The collective consciousness, and it's your own inner masculine that you are tapping into, because you've done the work and you're like, yes, this exists. Yes, they are out here because it's within me.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love you, by the way. I love you so much. You're wonderful.
Love you, Danny.
You're
Thank
wonderful.
you.
You're wonderful. What would be your message to women? What would be, you know, before we go that, I got a question to ask. This is an important one. This is coming up for me. You know, obviously I know what it is, and I know what I feel, and I know what I know, but you know, you and Aubert are also very, very different. You look different. You're culturally different, right? And I think that is the beauty of love, is that love doesn't care. Love doesn't care about anything, right? Love is love, you know? And you can't contain it. You can't put it into a box. It doesn't look a certain way. What was it like for you? You know, what was it like for you? Maybe there's a woman out there struggling, thinking like, oh my God, I found this wonderful guy, but he doesn't look like I thought he was going to look. Right?
Yeah, it's cute because Aubert and I were just on a podcast together yesterday, and we talked about this because that was what it was like for both of us. We weren't each other's outer like ego image of our partner.
Right.
And so, but the inside of how we felt inside every time was like, oh, it was this like, oh, this softening, this opening, this surrender, this trust. And so, and of course, I'm so attracted to him. We're so attracted to each other. But that first initial, you know, outer thing, it wasn't like, oh yeah, that's the one, right? Which could lead you like into trouble sometimes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I think that's the key piece is like, how does your heart feel? How is this person treating you? And are they consistent? Because I think that is very important. It's easy in the beginning, you know, for that mask to be playing the game.
Present.
Present. But what happens along the road? What shifts? Does it shift or is it still the same? Is he still treating you how he was in the beginning, right? And so that's what Aubert had. He had just consistency and he had integrity and he cares. One thing my mom says, which I love, is that you can't make a man care. And Aubert cares. Like he's there. He shows up. And not just for me. It's the way he treats other women too. He's there. He's there. Someone just recently shared a story in Bali when she was there that someone like tried breaking into her door and Aubert was there at the time and he was the only one in the group. They were in a group text. He drove on his bike 30 minutes in the rain to come get her. To go help her.
Yeah.
You know, when she told me that story, I cried because I'm like, that's Aubert. He takes care of the women. He takes care of his mama, you know, he takes care of his sisters. He's there and he can see you.
Yeah.
So you feel safe with him. So I think, yeah, that's the heart. You just have to feel the heart.
And that's regardless of how someone looks.
Yeah.
You know, I'll share, I've shared this, by the way, Casper, Jen finally agreed to come on the show. So we're going to do a podcast. It'll be great. But, you know, one of the things that I've shared before was that, you know, like for Jen and I, we had to get past that ourselves. Mm-hmm. I remember, you know, like she's just everything. She's absolutely wonderful. And yet she wasn't Latina, which, you know, like to a Hispanic man, like we're not with tall, beautiful white women. That's not what we do. We're with like, you know, maybe a little bit like we control. We like to like have this in our wheelhouse is what we like to do. It's our energy, right? It's the whole macho thing, right? And here I am, and it's beautiful how God works, like face to face with something that is completely the opposite of what I imagined. And I remember God literally in my ear and in my mind telling me, "You mean to tell me you're not going to be with her just because she's not from a certain country?" And he closed me, or he or she closed me. God goes, "That doesn't make sense, does it?" Right? Because God knows I'm a salesperson, right? So he asked me a question where I could answer, "No, that doesn't make sense." And I literally felt the energy of that story like release from me, you know? But it was the same thing for her. I remember we were getting like really close to like, I mean, we were talking rings. We were going crazy because we felt such a connection. And she pulled away because she got scared as well. And, you know, I'm like a little bit shorter than her and I'm different and I've got 3 kids and I'm older and all of these things. And that was like the scariest moment of my life because I thought like I finally found her and I was going to lose her because of the way I looked, you know? And it was beautiful medicine for me because I realized that I was doing the same thing as well, you know? And so like, it was medicine for me because it showed back to me what it feels like. And then obviously we reconnected and we love each other and we're crazy about each other. But that was the message. It's the message I want to give to our audience because love really doesn't care. And that's one of the greatest lessons that you could learn is that love truly doesn't care, you know?
And it does care.
Yeah. Tell me that.
No, just like what I was saying earlier about care.
I love that. And it does care. Yes,
love cares.
Care. Yes, I love that. What are your final thoughts?
I feel like I want to sing just like a little song to close, but this has just been so beautiful.
So let's sing.
Yeah. And you asked me earlier about women. What would I say? The womb work has been everything, connecting to the womb. And there are so many beautiful teachers out there doing and sharing the womb work womb wisdom, womb awakening, the power of our wombs, and how much healing we can do when we work with the womb energetically, spiritually, is just life-changing.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I've heard. And for you ladies, I want to encourage you, when we are stuck in the energy of please come help me, please come save me, we do things like, well, where do I find it, right? When there's something like Google out there, right? Tap into your power and go type in the words womb work in Google or hashtag womb work on Instagram and just let your intuition lead you to what's meant for you.
Yeah, or tap into your womb and just close your eyes and breathe and ask your womb a question, and you will hear an answer. The more that you do it, you'll drop into that space, and your womb has its own consciousness and will begin to share with you the wisdom of your womb.
That's right. I love it. I love it. What are you going to say?
Just like a little song I wrote.
I didn't even know you sang. I love it.
Oh, hey, oh, oh, hey, oh, oh, hey, oh, oh, hey, oh. May flowers and beauty surround you. May love bloom within and around you. May you live to grow old. May your heart glow with gold. Inner child stay laughing inside you. May you know that you're worthy of rest. May you feel that you're doing your best. May your soul dreams come true. We are rising with you, guided, protected, and blessed. Oh, eh, oh, oh, eh, oh. Oh, hey, oh, oh, hey, oh.
So beautiful. So beautiful. Thank you so much. This was awesome.
Thank you.
This was wonderful. This truly was. If you're out there listening, there's no way you can't have felt something here in this episode. And I want to encourage you to maybe go back and listen to it, in silence, in stillness, in the dark, in quiet, because I believe it will heal you. I believe that there's medicine in this episode. And I believe that if you allow that medicine to permeate your mind, your heart, your body, something's going to trigger, something's going to awaken, something's going to move, something's going to heal. And when you allow that to happen, just pay attention, right? Just slowly pay attention. Close your eyes and just pay attention to what you feel and where you're feeling it and what message comes to you. Because I promise you, that's how powerful we all are. We are no different than you, and you are no different than us. And when you awaken and find your highest self, you are going to be a healing vessel to humanity.
We are the medicine.
We sure are. Thank you for sharing. How do people find out more about you? What's your Instagram? I think you're going to blow up after this. It's gonna be beautiful.
My Instagram is Divine Davana, Divine Davana, Divine Davana. And Sacred Sister Circle was the work I've been doing for the last basically 7 years, that I'm slowly kind of shifting out of holding space in that way and moving more into birth. So I'm going to be attending my first birth this few months right before I give birth for another woman's birth, to help women birth outside of the system. Because I did the Radical Birth Keeper School, and holding space for women in postpartum, because that's such a time that is overlooked in this Western society, this most sacred time, the first 40 days of a woman's life after she gives birth. And so also Sacred Sister Circle is still on there, but it's going to be shifting. I'm open to where Spirit wants to bring me next. It's this place I'm in right now.
Beautiful.
Open.
Beautiful. I love that. I honestly believe this podcast and these clips we're about to make, Casper, I think you're going to be a hot one. I'll tell you that right now. I think this is magic. I really, really do. Yeah. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Danny.
Thank you. We'll see you next week on another episode of The Higher Self. Thanks for watching or listening. If this week's episode resonated with you deeply and you're ready to discover more about yourself, go to dannymorel.com and check out some of our upcoming events and our resources. Or if you'd like to learn more about our coaching programs, simply shoot us a message on Instagram and one of our team members will reach out to you immediately.